In Mark chapter 16, Jesus declared to us that he's given us authority over all the power of the enemy. And the Apostle Paul, in his letter to the assembly of called out ones at Ephesus, declares how that when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts unto men. He's talking about gifts of the Spirit. And we've got to understand also that if we have been water baptized into Jesus Christ and into his death, as Romans chapter 6 describes, and also Colossians chapter 2, verses 11, 12, and chapter 3, verse 1 through 3 describes how that if we have been baptized into Jesus Christ, through the faith that we believe that God raised him from the dead, then we believe that he gives life to our mortal bodies and raises us up together with him to the right hand of God. He also describes it in verse 11 as the circumcision made without hands and putting off the body of sins by the circumcision of Christ, showing our placement to sin is no longer under sin that he describes in Romans chapter 7, but over, far above all principality, power, and dominion. We've been raised far above all of that. So we who were once sold under sin by the first man, Adam, and our minds held prisoners to sin by the law of Moses that Paul describes in Romans chapter 7, and also again in Galatians chapter 3, how that, the law is our schoolmaster in Galatians chapter 3, meaning to bring us to Christ. This is what he's describing in Romans chapter 7. I had not known sin but by the commandment, or sin by the commandment might become exceedingly sinful. That's why he's saying in Romans 3:20, no flesh shall be justified, made righteous by the works of the law, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. No flesh shall be. Well, our flesh dies with Jesus in water baptism. That's also where it's given life, and through faith, we're raised with Jesus to the right hand of God, far above all principality, power, and dominion. As Jesus said, upon this rock, talking about Christ, shall I build my holy congregation, and the gates of hell shall not prevail.